All right, so I am here recording a training course for the one of you out there who cannot join me during my live online training sessions. As you may have read from our website, we have two lectures organized for you. One lecture, which is going to introduce you to our recording forms. So you'll, by the end of this presentation or lecture, you'll know how to use our land and our boat-based data forms. And a second presentation, which is going to teach you how to identify cetaceans in the wild. We're going to start by looking at the first presentation and learning more in depth how to conduct watches from the land and from the sea. So, as you can see from the screen, and there's a number of slides here that I may just go quickly over it because due to time constraints. The most important thing to take on board is that any platform that you use has benefits and has so there are pros and cons to every platform that you use, let's put it this way, easier way. Land watching is good because it's very non-intrusive and it allows animals to doing their own things without disturbing them. While boating does have an impact on animal being around, but at the same time, when you're boating, sometimes you're able to collect certain data that, due to distance, the distance that you may have from land, when you're conducting land watch, you can collect. So let's venture ourselves into land watching, but the thing also applies to boat watching, really. The most important thing is to get to know your area. If you don't know much about where you're going to conduct a watch, or you don't know much about the area that is near you, the stretch of coastline that you have near you, then get in touch with us. We do have some regional fact sheets where you can pinpoint the exact location of where you're based, and you can have a look at a list of viewpoints that we have selected for you. It's good to start from those viewpoints, and then it's good to sort of familiarize with those as much as you can, and then move into more unfamiliar territories. And that's because when you're trying to collect scientific data, it's good to collect data in as many from as many sites as you can. It's also good to collect data at any time of the day, so that you really truly understand how the animals are and what they're doing throughout the day, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. And it's also good to do it all year long, just not to give preference to one time a year and then to have some unbiased results about their occurrence or habitat use or distribution. So when you're going land watching, so now we're concentrating on this type of platform, the important thing is to remember to bring with you certainly a pair of binoculars. Some of us have very good vision, but we're never gonna beat binoculars. We need to see quite far out. I have listed a number of binoculars that I've used myself. I'm comfortable with them, but feel free to sort of pick the one that you think are the best for you. It's important to choose your binocular based on the species you're going to look out for and where you're conducting your watch from, and also based on the light condition or weather conditions that you might have in your area. It's good to have a wristwatch or a watch in general, like a smartphone. It's good to keep track of time because you need to track your effort in time. So you need to know when you start your watch, when you end it, and also need to know sometimes in between. So bring a phone with you or a wristwatch with you. It's important to write to bring our forms and to write on those forms, yes, correct, and also to know how to and know where the north, the south, the east, and the west are. So bring a compass. Either you have a separate compass. If you bring your phone, lots of phones these days have compasses in them. Lots of the phones these days not only have compasses, but they also have they have GPS positions in them. GPS positions, so coordinates, latitude and longitude, which we know are a perfect way to distinguish and identify undoubtedly locations around the world. So when we do a land watch, let's take a look at the form. We need to make sure that it is our very land watch. So take a look at that on the top is written land-based effort form. For land watching, we need one form. So there's only that A4 that you have in your hands. Obviously, if you conduct a very long watch, you probably need to photocopy that form again. But in each form that you have, in each A4 you have in your hands, you have a table for the effort, which is the upper table, and a lower table for sighting. You also have a space which is above the first table, which is the effort table, where you're going to write some general information, the name of the site you're conducting from, and please remember to write the name, followed by the county that site is located into. Please remember to also write latitude and longitude if you can, if you're familiar with those. We do tend to prefer decimal degrees or degrees decimal minutes as two formats, and let us know whether you are on the west or on the east side of the meridian. That's for the longitude. The longitude is the vertical line that divides the world into two spheres, really. It passes through Greenwich. So every location on the west side of Greenwich then sits on the west side of the meridian, so you put a W, or if it sits on the right side, so on the east, you put the E. To familiarize with coordinates, I'd suggest you download Google Earth Pro and you go into settings and you set them up into degrees decimal minutes, which is our preferred format. And then you'll get to be told whether you're on the east or on the west automatically by the program on the bottom right side of the screen. Tell us who you are, give us your email address and the phone number if you want, but at least the email address so we can reach you in case we have any queries. Very likely we know already who you are because we have registered your watch, but in case, just to be extra safe, just give it anyway. So the effort is important to write, and so we are writing an effort in time and in space. In time, it's by looking at our watch. We know we're starting our watch at a certain time, say at 9 a.m. We know we continue until 1. We're going to break down all those hours into 15 minutes blocks. So if you start a watch at 9, the effort time start is going to be 9:00. The end time for that line is going to be 9:15. In those 15 minutes, we're going to ask you to collect environmental parameters, the following ones: sea stick, swell height, wind direction, and visibility, that are described in the next slides, and to leave any other comments you may have. Once the first 15 minute ends, the second one starts. So the second one clearly starts at 9:15 and ends at 9:30. So the second 15 minutes block starts when the first one ends. And so forth. The bottom table, we said it's a sighting table, and it works that as soon as you sight something, it could be a whale, a dolphin, a porpoise, it could be a seal, it could be a fish, it could be a turtle. We really record a number of different marine species, do record them there. First scene is as soon as you sight the animal. Last scene is when you last see the species, either because you leave, either because the species leave, or whenever you're not sure and you think that you're not sure anymore where your animal is, then your sighting has ended. Let us know how many animals you see, how confident you are, what you see, so which species, and also let us know what the animals are doing and how far they are from you. If there are also any associated species, so within 100 meters from the animals, let us know as well. If recording species is a bit too much for you, then concentrate on the marine mammals, okay? Then we have the vessel-based forms. We have a form for effort and a form for sighting. Going back to the effort form, so the important thing is that, first of all, we have two sheets here. We have two forms together, always together. Every single watch we conduct, there are two forms together. So the important thing here is to remember that when you're boat watching, your platform, which is a boat, keeps on moving. And that's why there's a really large table for the effort. And it tells you also to mention latitude and longitude at certain times. And that's because you need to let us know where you are, because you keep on moving differently from when you're doing a land watch where you're always in the same place. So every 15 minutes, so time, when the column says time, you're going to write the start time of every 15 minutes block. you're going to let us know where you are by leaving a latitude and a longitude. So bring yourself a GPS position, go into the bridge where the captain is or the skipper is, and write that coordinates down. Also ask for boat course and speed from the captain or the skipper. The effort type is written down at the bottom. There are definitions for that, and so is the same for the environmental parameters. Okay. Sightings, exactly the same, very similar to what we have done previously. Probably the only different thing is that there is a column that says reaction. So reaction, obviously, of the animals to the presence of the vessel. There's a neutral reaction when animals keep on doing the same things that we're doing prior to our arrival. And negative, when the animals start heading away, they bunch into groups, they do vertical, horizontal avoidance. So traveling towards the vessel at 12, resurfacing at 6, that's vertical, or traveling towards the vessel and then resurfacing at 9 or at 3, that's horizontal. We have talked about already about longitude and longitude and the importance of these two imaginary lines to locate very precisely locations around the world. We've mentioned that we break down the effort into 15 minutes blocks, very important. We are now in British summertime, which starts at the end of March and ends at the end of October. So just keep in mind that you are in BST time. Then once you are out of this time, you are in GMT time. I'm mentioning GMT simply because we tend to convert BST into GMT to then run our statistics. And so we ask sometimes people to mention whether they are recording in GMT or BST, or whether they are converting the BST into GMT for us. If you don't want to go crazy about this, just write the time and as it is, and we're going to assume that you're writing it as BST, especially now since you are in BST. You're going to record some environmental parameters in both forms, from the land or from the sea. We talked about the sea state. Sea state is kind of described through a scale, just called Beaufort scale. We use the scale, which goes from 0 to 10, and to see how to describe how the sea looks like. And so this 0 is when the sea is the calmest, and 10 when is it the roughest. We generally tend not to collect any data above sea state 3, and that's because the sea already start becoming a little rough, waves start breaking up, and we have white caps around. Even if sparse in sea state 3, they're still present, and it could disturb our visibility, could kind of hide the presence of smaller animals, and therefore it's really our benchmark. We don't want to go above sea state 3, because beyond that point, conditions are so deteriorated that what we collect is no longer accurate. Okay. Then swell is the height of the wave, and we have this 3 category. So the idea is to kind of roughly estimate how tall or high the wave is when you conduct your watches. It is true that most of the time when you have a quiet sea state or low Beaufort scale number, you have a low swell, but it's also true that sometimes you have a simple sea state 2, which is rather quiet sea state, and you have a high swell. So don't necessarily assume that the two of them go in hand all the time. Visibility, what I do, I use Google Earth Pro. I use the ruler in Google Earth Pro, and then I know where I am. Having typed myself in the search box up on the left corner of the screen in Google Earth Pro. I use the ruler then to so I pinpoint some landmarks around me, and then I measure the distance between myself standing in that position and those landmarks, and I estimate how far things are, and so I'm going to try to use those distances to then work the visibility out. This is the way we do it. Down in UK, where we do fieldwork, this is how we do it everywhere. Then there is a point of identifying species if you cite any. So at this point, I'm going to move a certain discussion with regards to what to look out for when we cite cetaceans for the next presentation. I'm going to start in a minute, but I'm going to go over the behavior quickly though. Behavior is something very interesting, very intricate, but not impossible. The more experience you have and the more time you spend looking at animals, the better you get. Generally, animals would do at least 4 different things. So we would talk about 4 different behavioral categories. They would travel, they would socialize, they would sleep or rest, and they would feed. So we have some nice photos about traveling animals, either normal pace or really fast paced. We'll have feeding whales or dolphins, which is generally the most really active we can see animals being. Animals that could be resting, either logging like this humpback or the pilot whale, or they could be slow swimming, so resting while swimming. Kneeling is simply just another word to describe the fact that the animals are really going around without a precise direction of heading, and sometimes kneeling goes hand in hand with resting, not when they're logging the animals, but when they're resting while swimming. And then there's a number of, aerial behaviors, some of which are percussive, like this one's here, the jumps or the lips, which can fit into one of these 4 behavioral categories. Okay, so take a look at all of this out there when you see animals and try to note them down into your forms. All right, so now let's remember, obviously, to submit our sightings using our online sighting form before you return our forms to us. So this is so the link to our online form, it was given to you by email when you registered your watches. Then this is a screenshot of our website. So you have sightings at, which is our email address, just in case you need to query us. But in this case, because we're talking about National Dolphin Watch, do send us an email on nwdw@seawatchfoundation.org.uk. This is a screenshot of our online sighting form. So remember to fill in this form, enter all your sighting here, and then return the form to us. If you don't have time to enter them online, just send us the form back. Tell us that you haven't entered the sightings online, and we'll do it for you. Brilliant. Okay, and remember to return your forms before August 15th at the email address you provided, because in this way, doing that, you will enter automatically our competition, and there are some really grand prizes up for grabs. All right, so let's go and have a look at the next presentation, which is a presentation where we learn how to identify cetaceans in the wild. All right, here we go. So we're going to skip the first few slides simply because we don't have a lot of time. So please do not forget pinnipeds. They are sighted in UK waters, and there's a slide here that really describe and distinguish common seals to gray seals. And I really would like you to remember to keep track of them and record them if you see them. Okay. Then sighting cetaceans in the wild is really it's a tricky little thing, but it's not as difficult as people think. Is again based on practice, really. So take a look at the matrix of things which are all listed here. All these things that are listed here you have to look out for. So the more features you identify, the better, and the more comfortable you're going to be in identifying the species that you have in front of you. Let's start by talking about minke whales. So the minke whale is a 5 to 10 meters long whale, is the most common baleen whales in UK waters. It is distinguished by having a triangular shaped dorsal fin, 2/3 along the back. The snout is very pointed, that's very distinct of minke whales, and they have a white patch on each pectoral flipper, as the photo here at the bottom shows. The blow is very faint, so it's not really something you should be looking out for, the species, although it is shown in this drawing. I say you sometimes smell them better than you see them if all that you get to see is the blow. Sei whales. Sei whales are up to 18 meters. They're very similar to minkies, but they're clearly bigger, and they have a taller dorsal fin. It's higher, and that's really all there is, besides the fact that their blow is 3 meters tall, so it's way more visible than the one of minkies. Fin whales are up to 24 meters. Their dorsal fin is still in a similar position to minke, but the angle described is way lower. The angle described, so when you have the back and then you have the fin, the slope is just way lower for fin whales. The dorsal fin is also way more elongated at the tip, and then they have this asymmetrical coloration. The left side of their jaw is dark, the right side is white. And then they have obviously a very tall blow, fin whales, 4 to 6 meters. And they are quite long, 24 meters as well. Blue whales. Blue whales are the largest marine mammals that exist. They're up to 30 meters. What is distinct about them, besides the size, and they are humongous, is the mottled pigmentation. Very small dorsal fin that comes at the very end, and then a very, very prominent below, very tall. But I say the size and the mottled pigmentation certainly gives it away. Humpback. The humpback are between 11 and 16 meters. They have long, white pectoral flippers. Look out for those, they're very distinct and a very nobly had. The fluke, as you can see from the ventral side, is a very distinct pattern of black and white. And it identifies the species and identifies the individual, so it's individual specific. The heads of whales changes a lot of cetaceans in general. Look at these whales all together. We go from the pointiest head, which is the minke whale, to the broadest, which is the blue whale. Heads also here, very rounded for sperm whales, full of callosity for right whales, very rounded with a present long beak for bottlenose whales, and then for Cuvier-beaked whale, quite a blunt one, but with the presence of 2 teeth sticking out. Flukes are also very different. If that's all you get to see, take a look at flukes, because they're very, very, it's easy to distinguish whales when you see their flukes, when you're going down for a dive. Different spouts. Right whales have a twin spout. Sperm will have one going to the left. Fin types very different, really. Let's take a look at the humpback. They have the hump and a very reduced fin. The very tall, pointy one of orcas, and the rather like curved but broad, the one of Cuvier of bottlenose whales. The beak we said the beak could be present, like in these bottlenose whales, but it could also be absent or almost absent, like in the case of Cuvier-beaked whales. Very long for sowerbees, or they also have these 2 tusks on each side of the jaw, the lower jaw. And it could be absent, blunt face for beluga whales. Have also very distinct coloration, which is something that you absolutely should be looking out for. Coloration also, it's very used to distinguish other type of cetaceans like orcas, like white-beaked dolphins. They have this dark and light gray patterns. They look like brownish in this photo, but that's a result of the light, of the conditions being sunny. If you look at the bottom photo, that's more what you'll get to see. Take a look at pilot whales. Coloration, once again, very rounded head, very broad dorsal fin as well. Take a look at the photo on the left side. You'll see the dorsal fin. Then you have this beautiful anchor-shaped, almost heart-shaped in the throat area as well. Common dolphins, we're talking about a dolphin that is 1.5, 2.2 meters long. Hourglass coloration on the side, and then you have this ochre patch behind the eye. Take a look at striped dolphin, very small. They're never more than 2.5, 2.6 meters. It's a combination of light and gray, but differently from white-beaked dolphins, you have all these stripes connecting the eye to the flipper and the eye to the genital area. Then you have this big, thicker stripe coming from the dorsal fin and then crossing in the middle of the back, which is unique of the species, and quite a long beak. Then you have Atlantic white-sided dolphin with that ochre patch in the peduncle area, which is typical of the species. Then you have Cuvier-beaked whale with a layer of diatoms that gives them the sort of orangey, yellowish coloration. Lots of scars for rhesus dolphins. They also have a very, very rounded, blunt face. Very falcate dorsal fin. The older they get, the more scarred they become. And then you have bottlenose dolphin, 3 to 4 meters. And they are counter shading at its best, I say, dark at the top, white at the bottom. Nothing too special about coloration. Size quite big though, especially white-beaked bottlenose dolphins in this waters are quite chunky, quite big. Harbor porpoises, the smallest out there, 1.5 meters. They have a blunt face, very small, perfectly triangular dorsal fin, as you can tell. They move like spinning wheels. So take a look at also how animals move when they swim. You can distinguish them by looking at that as well. And they make a really funny noise when they come up to breathe. They call them the puffing pigs. And with this, I'm ending my presentation. I also remind you that we have a lot of additional information that we can share with you. We have a cetacean ID quiz, so you can test how well you can identify cetaceans in the wild before you watch. We can provide answers once you provide us with yours. We have videos so you can practice with group counting, environmental, we can practice with identifying environmental conditions, behaviors, and then we also have a protocol for photo ID, so we'll tell you a little more about that technique. And we also have other files on the site to introduce you to all the different environmental parameters that I mentioned, and also to introduce you to behavior. There's two nice publications I have where behavior is really nicely described. So if you're interested in that, please, please, please get in touch. Thank you.